All right, so I am here in Canvas, and I'm going to show you how to do your Racetrack Part 1 that was done in class first part of this week. Just kind of go through it and review it with you and help those that were maybe absent or just not paying attention. Here under Racetrack Part 1, you'll see there is a file to link to. You can either highlight and copy that URL and then paste it into the address bar, or you can click right there and that will take you to this additional site. The additional site has where you can download this archive file, which is a zip file, and you can either download it there or there. Once you download it, here in Finder, under downloads, you'll see, for me, it's just downloaded the zip file. If it doesn't automatically extract it, I can double click that, and then it extracts it out into a folder that has 3 different PNGs. We're going to be looking at this racetrack.png first. Here I am in column view just to make sure that you are aware of that. I'm going to look down here and I'm going to see that the image size has 2501 by 1876. 2501 by 1876. So over here in Animate, what I'm going to do is either go File New, or I have this actual dialog open up in the version of Animate that I'm using. And I'm going to come here under the width and I'm going to set it to 2501. And then I'm going to set that height to 1876. I'm going to make sure that it is an ActionScript 3.0, and I'm going to go ahead and choose to create that, then document. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and zoom out. Remember, Command 0 just kind of makes it there where it centers it in Window, File, Import into the stage. And what I'm going to import, I'm going to find that racetrack, and I'm going to choose to import that into that stage. It fits perfectly because that is the exact same measurements of it. I'm going to come over to my layers palette. I'm going to name that layer Racetrack, and then I'm going to lock it. That way I don't accidentally mess it up. I'll go ahead and create a new layer, then that way I'll begin my drawing on. And there is that new layer selected, okay? I'm going to come here and I'm going to just start with this tire barrier. And I'm going to just zoom into it and scroll over to it. And I can see, hey, those are little circles, but that circle doesn't have a fill to it, meaning it doesn't have a center color that's filled. I can see the sand versus the grass versus wherever they are. That's what I can see to them. So I'm going to go ahead and get my oval tool. I'm going to come over here and turn my paint bucket, which is my fill. I'm going to turn it off by selecting that little white icon with the red line through it. And then I'm going to come over here to my stroke, and you'll see I've got all these colors here, but if I move my mouse over the actual tire, you'll see that I have that eyedropper, and there I can actually choose that tire color. Okay, I'm going to click and hold the Shift key down and drag out a circle, and then I'm going to select it by pressing V to get my selection tool and dragging a selection box over it. I can adjust the stroke to make it thicker so that I have a thicker stroke, more similar to what I see out here. And then even with it still selected, I'm going to press Q, which is my free transform tool. I'm going to hold the Shift key down again, and then I can up that size just a little bit to make it closer to what I'm seeing over here. And you can see that's pretty darn close. I may need to just up that stroke size just a little bit. So I'm going to just kind of have it still selected, press 3. If I needed to again, I can zoom in. You can see there's a little bit of difference. I maybe made mine a little too big, so let me just drop it down size-wise. And I can check that out, and yep, that looks pretty good right there. With that selected, again, V, I'm selecting it. I'm going to press F8. All right, so with it selected, I'm going to press F8. You'll see F8 brings up convert to a symbol, and I'm going to not have it be a button, but I'm going to have it be a movie clip, and I'm going to call this simply wheel underscore tire. And now that becomes a symbol. I need to create another oval, and if I hover over this, you'll see O is my keyboard shortcut for oval. And this time, though, I'm going to choose that inner, that little lighter gray to it. Again, I'm going to click and drag out, hold that Shift key down, that constrains it, but I don't need it to be that thick and wide this time. So again, V to get that selection, have it selected, and now I can adjust that stroke, make that stroke somewhat thinner, probably not quite that thin, but somewhere in between the two, and something like that maybe. I'm going to go ahead and, if I need to, then press F8, convert that into a symbol, wheel underscore rim. Now that is a symbol as well. I can move it in. I see it's too small. Q, that's that free transform, holding that shift key down. I can then adjust, use my arrow keys as needed to fine tune the placement of it so that I feel that it's in the center of it. Okay, and that's because I have all my view and then snapping. If you have these turned off, which you might want to do, if you turn them all off there, you can just use those arrow keys real easy. You don't have to worry about it snapping to other objects or anything else. You can control where it's going to be placed. Then what I'm going to do is select both of those symbols, F8 again, and then I'm going to call this wheel underscore complete. And there's one of them. And if I was to look, you can kind of see that fits pretty close to exactly where that one is. Okay. Now, all I need to do is with this one here, I'm going to just kind of place it approximately where that one is. If I need to, I could bring up my rulers, right? Which if you went here under view, you would see there's your rulers. And I could bring out a guide if needed and say, hey, there's the edge of that tire. There's the edge of that tire. So I know where those two complete wheels should go. So I'm going to just have this one line up right there. And then I'm going to just hold down the Alt key and I'm going to just start duplicating these over. I'm not going to be too worried about them overlapping, not overlapping. I'm not even going to worry if they get kind of out of alignment there. I'm just looking to have the exact same number of tires that we had in the other one. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Got a couple extra. I can get rid of them. I'm looking to move then that very last one over to right there. I want to select them all, and I can just create that range with them. And then I'm going to come to my align palette. I want to align them all to the center and then have them distribute out. And you can see there they are distributed. And they're the exact same, right? Maybe mine are just a smidge smaller, but that's it. From here, what I'm going to do is quite literally just take this. I'm going to hold down the Alt key again, and now I'm going to drag out and place these approximately there. I'm going to do another row, and if I look at my original, I can see that, hey, I had approximately 4 rows. Then with those 4 rows completed, I'm going to come and select these end ones. So I don't need these over here or that one. And now that looks very similar to that. I'm going to select all of those, F8 again, and I'm going to call this, we'll call it wheel underscore barrier, and then I can hit OK. So now all I need to do is position these approximately into place, and then I can zoom out a little bit, and I know I'm going to need another one for over here. I can press Q. Q brings up that free transform. I can rotate outside one of the 4 corners, place it approximately into place. Again, I can zoom out even more if I need to. Alt, hold that Alt key down, click to duplicate, right? So I still have that one there. I've got this one here. Free transform outside one of the 4 corners to it. Fine tune its placement. Again, Alt, click, drag, Alt, click, drag, Alt, click, drag. Fine tune the placement of each of these. Using free transform, I can rotate to get this into position so that it's approximately where the other series of that tire barrier is. And then I can move on to the next little segment, right? So there's that. Again, one last one here to go. There it is. Rotate. Adjust my placement to it. Then I'm going to lock that layer. That way I don't mess it up. I can call it something like tire barrier. Create another new layer on this new layer icon. Okay, another new layer. Now I could start with these little sand segments if I wanted. They're pretty easy to do as well. So again, I may choose a circle. I may choose something like a rectangle even. It really is up to you on what you choose to start these with. I've got just the oval tool for right now. We'll do one of them with an oval tool. I'm going to choose to not have any stroke because I look at them and I don't see any type of outline to it. And then I'm going to choose my fill color. And with my fill color, I can, again, move my mouse out to that sand color, and there it is. Now all I have to do, no stroke to it at all, I'm going to just draw out an oval. I can zoom into this particular one. Again, get my selection tool, and then I can start manipulating this to where it needs to be. And I can start seeing, hey, there it goes, right? I can drag this up to that. I can add a point if I need to down here. So I could go Command and then click, and I can see it starting to add a point. If I need to, I could select it to make it a little easier for me to see. Why don't I make it a totally different color for right now? So that way I've got it a totally different color. You can see this real easily compared to that sand color now, so that the two don't look anywhere close to one another. I can then come and pull and shape this so that it is really almost identical to what we have here. Okay, I can change that point where things are, move stuff up and around. If I need to, I could even select that. And maybe I need to come back to my color, and then I have this alpha as well. Maybe I want to take the alpha down. Again, alpha is transparency. So now I can see, hey, am I up? See, I can see over here now, I actually went too far with this, and I went too far by having that alpha turned down. I can see that a little more clearly. I need to move this up and over. Start doing that. Move this back and around. Again, a little more back over here. I don't need these guides anymore, so I could just select those guides and either drag them back to the ruler. That would get rid of them for sure, or select them and delete them, either way. But that will get rid of those guides. I can move this up and over. Again, it's going to go underneath the track, so it's not 100% where it needs to be placed, but I can definitely get it pretty close. I can add another point if I need to, help it cooperate a little better for me. Maybe I want to add a point back over here. If I mess up, just Command Z real quick. I can take that. Here's a point to it. That enables me then to grab this without moving the whole thing. I need to move that point in. And then I need to pull this out a little bit better. Okay. And it's just a push and pull kind of technique to it all here. Okay. If you accidentally move the whole thing, Command Z. Put it back in place. Okay. That way it's not the end of the world to all of this, right? Once you get it to where you want it, select it. Now I'm going to come and just choose that color. If I need to up my opacity to it to 100%. And there's that in place. I'm not concerned about this. This is going to go underneath that roadway. But there's one of them down. Exact same thing for the rest of them here. So I'm going to do that exact same thing, and then I'm going to lock that layer. So I could call this something like the sand traps, or so that's kind of what those are. And then lock it once you get them all done. That way, if you hide your map, you'll be able to start seeing things develop there. The roadway, just to show you briefly how that is done. So I could call this the actual track to it, or the roadway, either way. I'm going to actually come and get my rectangle tool, select the road color. I'm going to also then select, there's a little bit of a darker gray then for the outside of it. I'm going to come here and just start dragging out my rectangle. I can zoom in again using that V for move tool or selection tool, and then Command. I can add a point to this. If I see, hey, you know what? I can look and see I need to make this just a little bit thicker. So I'm going to make it 0.5 here. Let's see. And increase that stroke up just a little bit to make it more similar to what we saw before. I can then drag this out, Make this point just a little smoother, increasing that distance into it. If I need, again, Command, click, drag. That drags that point. Then I need to just bend the roadway to it. Back over here, as we progress, we can do the same for this. Command, add a point over here. You'll notice that extends way over here into it. I can click and drag that line back. If I need to fine tune it any, just right here. It's that simple. If you mess up, Command Z, take you back. Continue on. Now I'm not doing the center stripe, that way it makes it easier for me to see where I've been and where I haven't. Command, click, there it goes. Bend it to where it needs to be. And that's all I'm doing to do the entire roadway in one huge piece to it. Okay. Once you get to these little straightaways, they're pretty easy. Just want to set that point where that straightaway goes. Here's another section of a straightaway. Notice that kind of comes over into it, and I need to pull that in. Then once I get the straightaway where I want it, from the point, I'm going to have, think of it just as a rectangle. So I'm going to have from here all the way to about here is just straight. So now I can really start doing some big chunks to it and just start pulling that way up. Another corner here, way out. That way I get this nice smooth section to it. Then I can start doing the curved section again. Again, little smaller pieces, a point, click, drag, press that command, another point over here. Then I need to drag this in to make a nice curved line to it. And you can see how that would then begin progressing on around that entire racetrack. Again, lock it once you get done. I could hide that racetrack and see how things begin to develop. Again, I would want my track above my sand traps. Why? Well, some of these sand traps down here, for instance, are going to actually be below the roadway. So things like here, I want to make sure that I'm on that layer, on that frame, and then I would have it to where that is starting to come out. Okay, I don't want a stroke to it, so I'd probably select that if needed, or just Control Z, Command Z, excuse me. But I could have that sand color, right, that we started with. I could draw out another oval here. Again, if it does that stroke, just select the stroke if you need to. Just come through, click as many times as you need, get rid of the stroke. If you need to adjust the opacity, click on that, change that alpha down. That way you're able to see through the color to it. And so I've got that turned down just a little bit. Whatever you need to do to make this work for you. If you need, it's easier changing to a totally different color along with the alpha, do that as well. So now you can see I've got it this kind of blue if I need to. I could drag this out, start positioning it into place, and then when I get back over here, I'm going to have it literally go through this roadway. So you can see it starting to go through where I'd drawn. If I need to, again, press that Alt. I can then come and actually take out a little corner of it if needed. I could delete that, reshape it, do whatever's needed into it. If I need to hide a layer above, just hide that layer above. You can see there's the original drawing down here. That's why I'm keeping everything locked other than what I'm working on right now at the time. Again, there's that point. I see it goes right about to there. I could press Command. Press Command. That allows me to bring out another point into this, and then I can reshape this little curved line section to it. Come back here, and you just continue to progress throughout this entire project this exact same way. So here's a big point way over here. I'm going to then come and grab this whole little section, and I can just start moving it out as needed. And see that it's filling in roughly where that sand was or should be. Okay. If I need to come back over here, if I need to move this point, I can still grab that point. It's not permanently there. I can then come and grab either the whole thing and move it, or if I need to, reposition something, come back and through it. If I fold it back on top of itself, you can see it kind of creates this kind of weird look to it. May not want all that. So I can move it up there even if needed. Come back out here. Maybe I need to just drag this whole piece right out that direction. You can see how that just kind of makes it really nice in one big piece of it. Here, maybe another Alt. Try putting a piece there. Come through, drag that up. Again, Alt, click, then make your little curve section. Alt, click, and then I can even pull these little sections up. Okay, if I need to, it kind of can work in through here. If I need to come back to that point, you can notice when I move over that point, I'm able to do so. Okay, get it to where you like it, come back. I'm going to choose that color. There it is. Make sure my alpha is all the way turned up. And again, my roadway would go on top of it there. I'd probably make that into a symbol. If you haven't, make it into a symbol. Call this like sand trap 1. This one happened to be sand trap 2. And that way you're making all of those symbols. Okay. Again, zoom out. You can see how this is progressing. Okay. Make sure that you're locking your layers. You're going to do the exact same thing for the little barriers here, for the buildings, for the trees. The very last thing you're going to do is probably have a layer here, and I would call it something like grass. And then this very last layer, it can be just a huge rectangle. And I'm going to actually come through and change the color of this rectangle. I'm going to take out the stroke. But before I hide it, I'm going to actually leave the green there. And if I needed to, I could select that because I had it that sand color. Make it the same color as that green. Okay. Then I could come through and make this be as big as I needed it to be, either using free transform or whatever it needs to be. If it's bigger than the stage, that's fine. It's going to go all the way down in my layer stacking order because I'm going to have all my pieces of the track out above it. Because eventually then when we export this and animate, then I can have this be the size. So even if I needed to, I could select it, come over here. I notice my width should be 2501, height 1876. The X and Y position, depending on where we're looking at, it could be 0 and then 0. And you can see it fits it perfectly in there. Here's where I had a little bit of a stroke. I could select that stroke and get rid of it. Didn't need it. There it is. Hide it, and then you can see you're starting to build all these things on top of it. If I had it out, you can see, hey, I still got a lot to go. I've got my little tire barriers. I need to finish up my sand traps. I need to finish my track up and everything else to this. So that's how you're going to do this project. Just one little piece and component at a time, building it up. Remember things like these little barriers, you create one and then you duplicate it. Same thing in through here. You can just quickly and easily duplicate that. Same for the roadway as well. Okay. Far as the lines, the dotted line here, that's pretty easy to do. Just show you that real quick. On a new layer, I could show you, hey, dotted line. And I'm going to call it just that, and it is just that. It's my line tool. Okay, says, hey, you got it. It changed that formatting to it right here. A dotted line, all I need to do with this dotted line is have my line tool selected. For the stroke, it's not going to have a fill because it's a line. The color is going to be white, but the style here is going to be the key, and I'm going to choose a dashed line to it. I can control how far the spacing is, the thickness to it. I might choose to do a one stroke there, one width to it, and you can kind of see as I start to drag this out, if I hold that shift key down, it will make it go perfectly horizontal or vertical or whatever I am needing. I can select that line. I have some additional things in here where it says edit stroke style, right? So I could choose this and it says, hey, what's the spacing? What's the actual points here of this? So I could come through and this is going to change the number of dashes and the size as well as the spacing to those. So if I'm to come in through and actually start looking at how this is doing that, you can kind of see, hey, that's starting to make it much, much bigger, right? Again, I can click on that little pencil icon right there, and I'm able to control how big these dashes are. Maybe I want the dashes the same size spacing, so 20 and 20. So I could hit that, say OK, and now I can see that's starting to get pretty darn close to what I need for my dash line. If it's not perfectly the same dash, that's fine. It's not going to be the end of the world. I'm going to sit here and take my dash line. There it is there. Again, I can select it. You can notice when I go over it there. Again, when I press that shift, it's going to constrain it. And there it goes right there, that entire length of that roadway. Can't really see it right there, but that's where it is. Same thing that I'm going to do here. I'm going to take this exact same line, right? I could take one point of it and position it and the other point. So let's say here is this roadway where we started it here. Grab this point if I can find that endpoint. If I can't find that endpoint, that's fine. I can just sit here and create a selection, delete it, shorten that endpoint. Now I know where that endpoint is. Drag it up here to where my roadway was. Okay, again, let me zoom in so you're able to see this and actually see what I'm doing to make this a curved line and through it. And then I'm going to just pull this and kind of adjust it into the center of this roadway. Again, Command will kind of help bring that in, and it adds a point into that line. So now that line is actually moving. You can see it's moving from where that point is. If you need to, get your white arrow and you're able to click on it, and you can see where those points actually line up so that you're able to fine-tune where those points actually are and make sure that they're in the center of this roadway. Because the curve, you've got a little actual more room here in the center of my roadway where it's actually lined up versus through some of the corners and some of the smaller sections. So that's how you're going to do even your dotted line. Again, lock things down. You can hide as needed and just look at what you're working on. Okay. Once you get everything done, make sure that you are saving this. Okay, I'm going to do File Save As. I'm going to make sure that I save it out as a FLA. I'm probably going to call mine something along the lines of Racetrack. Kind of makes sense. And then most importantly, know where you're saving it, whether you're saving it to your documents, your desktop, downloads, wherever it may be. So if I'm saving this to the desktop, there it is, and it's going to be saved. Okay. Hope that was helpful to you. If not, please ask any questions that you might have.